How did you end up going to Cleveland?
I got traded.
Did you want to go there, or you wanted to stay in Boston the rest of your career?
No, I had a great year in '68. You know, as I said, almost won the Triple Crown, led the big leagues in RBIs, and then Cleveland, Alvin Dark was managing them, and we had obviously had a good relationship. So they needed some hitting, and the Red Sox needed a right-handed starter, a right-handed reliever, and a catcher. So I wake up on a Saturday morning, and I'm reading the paper, and I see this article written by a guy named Larry Claflin, who said the Indians and the Red Sox are going to make a deal. The Indians need hitting, and the Red Sox need pitching and a catcher. So my name was involved. They said the Red Sox are going to trade Ken Harrelson, George Scott, and Yastrzemski to hold it. To Cleveland for pitching. So I called Dick O'Connell, the general manager, up, and I said, Dick, I said, what is this? He goes, Hawk. He said, I read it. He said, your name has not even come up. Don't even worry about it. It's a big old ballpark that day. And Louis Camp was pitching for Cleveland. And Louis had just had a great year the year before, you know, set the all-time American League record, which still stands for ERA for a season of 1.60. So the first time up, I hit a home run. Now, the last time up, Louis still out there, and I hit another home run. And I'll never forget, I was running on first base. And I said, well, that'll put an end to all that shit. So I go home after the game, and I had a house guy there, Wendell. He was an older guy, about 75, and he took care of me. You know, he cooked for me and everything. So all of a sudden the phone rings. So Wendell picks it up and he hands it to me. And it was Alvin Dark. And he says, Kenneth? He says, that's what he called me. He said, Kenneth, come on over and put the red hat on. I said, what? He said, just traded for you. I said, you what? He said, I'm getting tired of seeing you hit home runs against us. I just traded for you. So I thought for a minute. I said, Alvin, I love you, you know that. But I said, that's bullshit. I said, I'm not coming. He said, yeah, you will. He says, you'll come for me. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not coming. And they had traded Sonny Siebert, Joe Askew, the catcher, and Vincente Momo. All three of those guys that made the All-Star team in the last 2 years. It was a hell of a deal for Boston. And so I held out. Finally, Billy Kuhn called a meeting in New York with the general managers and myself. And by this time, I had Bob Wolf as an agent. And we went over there. And because none of those guys could play, that was the rule at the time.
You were mentioning about Cleveland, but the good thing about joining Cleveland was you weren't going to have to face Sam McDowell anymore.
Well, there's two good things about it. You don't get to face Sam, have to face Sam anymore, and you don't have to make any road trips there.
Yeah, but you were there for half of your games.
No. But what I did was unprecedented in the history of baseball when I held out like that. There were 7 players involved in the deal, and none of the other 6 could play until either they rescinded the deal or I reported. So after all I went through this, and finally agreed to terms in New York, the commissioner's office, they changed the rule. They call it the Harrelson rule. It used to be it was up to the team that traded you to get you to where they traded you to. So after I did held out like that, they changed it to whereas it's up to the team who traded for you to get you there. That way the players wouldn't be held up. The other players wouldn't be held up. And the only way, they're going to get you there if you didn't want to go was what? With more money. So it turned out to be a huge factor in the salary structure of baseball. Jimmy Cannon was a very famous and a great sports writer in New York. And after we did that, Jimmy, there must have been, 150 media people there at the commissioner's office waiting to see what was going to happen. And then when we announced that we made the deal, Jimmy Cannon comes walking up to me. He was a little guy. He had a big cigar. He said, "That's what you did today." I said, "What are you talking about, Jimmy?" He said, "You just broke down the salary structure of baseball." And he went on, and finally he wrote a column the next day, just blistered my ass. I mean, he really did. But Jimmy was a great writer. And when you did something good, he praised you. When you screwed up, then he would burn your ass. And he thought because I destroyed the structure of baseball, which, it had never been done, that a player traded, held out, and then got a raise on his current contracts. That had never happened in the baseball system. So I went to Cleveland. I've never been to a place I didn't have a good time in. So I had a good ballpark. It was the biggest ballpark in the major leagues. You had to kill it to get it out of it. When I joined them, Alvin Dark says, "Look, we got some great pictures." He said, "David, the culture of baseball was different. Managers told you what they wanted you to do. If you were a run and butt type guy, he would tell you, I want you to get 15 or 20 points this year because that's 30 or 40 points. And you're going to score more runs. If you're a home run hitter, he would tell you, like Alvin told me, he said, all I want you to do with this pitching staff we got in that big ballpark, if you hit me 20 home runs and drive in 75 runs, you'll have done your job. That's all I need from you is 20 home runs and 75 runs." Well, I wound up hitting 30 home runs, drove in 90-something. And we finished dead ass last. So, it didn't work out that well. But actually, the year before, when I hit 35 home runs to finish third in the league, if I'd hit the ball the same way in Cleveland playing in Fenway, it would have been 50 or 60 home runs.
Was Alvin Dark your favorite manager?
Oh, yeah. He was the best manager I ever played for winning was Dick Williams. Dick was a tough, sarcastic ex-Marine, and he played. Alvin had the best baseball mind. There were guys like Alvin Dark, Gene Mott, Paul Richards. Those were considered to be probably the three best baseball minds in the game, and at that time frame. But Dick Williams did things as the manager that were out of the box that none of those other guys would have done, even though they did things that were out of the box. But Dick played hunches, he played instincts, and he made moves in a ball game that, he was a hell of a winner. It's just that simple. Guys hated him. In fact, when we had our 40th anniversary of the 67 team, they called me, they were going to have the 10th, and I didn't go. Then they called me when we were going to have our 20th, and I didn't go. They called me when we were having our 30th, I didn't go. And when they said, "Hawk, we're having our 40th anniversary," I said, "Hawk, you better get your ass up there." So I went up to Boston, and they had like 23 members of the team, 67 team that were there. And it was amazing, because the media was interviewing everybody, and it was amazing how many of those 23 guys said then, 40 years later, I hated Dick Williams. I couldn't stand him, but he was the best manager ever.
You get credited for inventing the batting glove. Did you ever think, you know what, I should have trademarked it?
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. And, how that came about was I was platooning. I was a young player at the time. And you got to remember, minimum salary was $6,000 back in those days. And my first 2 years in the big league, I made more money playing golf, shooting pool, and arm wrestling than I did playing Major League Baseball. So I was platooning, and the Yankees came in, and the only time we ever drew any fans at Kansas City was when the Yankees came in. So they had a right-hander scheduled to pitch that night, so Ted Bosefield and myself went out and played Sammy Esposito and Chino Zamoli, $25 natural on the golf course. And of course, we killed them. So we played 27 holes because they wanted an emergency time. So I go to the ballpark that night, and I look at the lineup, and shit, I'm in there at third because the Yankees have switched from Jim Coates to Whitey Ford. And I developed, playing the 27 holes, developed a blister on my ring finger, the bottom of my ring finger on my left hand. And I remembered I had my golf club because I went right from the golf course to the ballpark. So I went up and I got the golf club, and it was a flaming red golf club. And I came to the plate at the bottom of the first inning, and I was wearing this golf club, and I'm telling the Yankees were all over my ass. You know, you push, you know, all that stuff. Because nobody, you know, had ever worn one. So anyway, don't you know, Whitey hung me a curveball, and I hit that some bitch about 460 feet over that left center field wall. And I can't, every time I'd come to the plate, they were still on me, but not quite as bad. And then I hit another home run later on. So what happened was the next day, the Yankees all came out on the field wearing red golf gloves. Because Mantle had the clubhouse guy go out and buy a couple of dozen, and they all came out with red golf gloves on. So that's how the hitting book got started, out of necessity.
How did you know when it was time to retire?
When I broke my leg and dislocated my ankle sliding into second base in spring training in '70. You know, in that rehab time, David, I just lost interest in playing the game. You know, 2 years earlier, I was player of the year and everything else. I had it figured out. I was 29 years old, and I just lost interest in playing the game. I did not want to play baseball anymore. And I told Gabe Paul, who was general manager, and I told Alvin, you know, Gabe was the president of the club. Alvin was the general manager. And Gabe was president of the club. And I told him, I said, I'm going to retire. I'm quitting. And Gabe Paul, I talked to him on the phone, and he said, you're not going to quit. He said, who's going to walk away from that kind of money? And I told him over the phone, I said, Gabe, you just made a big mistake. And I told him I was going to quit in Boston. The club was going to Boston on a road trip. And I wanted to have my last at bat at Fenway Park. So I announced it to the press that after that I was going to retire. And I'm a son of a gun. If we go up there, I'm gonna pitch hit in the last game. Alvin, we had it all worked out. Don't you know we got rained out, so I never got to get my last at bat at Fenway Park. I just lost interest in playing the game. I wanted to try something different.